The life of Peter Sellers is a 20th century archetype, that of an astronomical rise from humble beginnings to international stardom. But away from the characters of Inspector Clouseau and Chance the Gardener, Sellers was a troubled man. Here are some tragic details about Peter Sellers. Famous for slipping in and out of characters and creating new ones at the drop of a hat, the character of the real-life Peter Sellers has been difficult to pin down. Stanley Kubrick described the naturalness with which he inhabited his roles in classic movies as, quote, a state of comic ecstasy, and his dynamism is shown especially in the film Dr. Strangelove, in which Sellers plays 3 distinct parts. But it has been reported by many biographers that Sellers found his own identity impossible to inhabit. Furthermore, in a 1980 interview on The Today Show, the actor discussed an idea that had recently taken hold that, in essence, there was no Peter Sellers. Sellers claimed that it wasn't entirely true that behind the mask he was an empty vessel. But the topic had recurred throughout his career, and in a famous clip from The Muppet Show, Sellers, who had hosted the show as a range of characters, told Kermit,
"There is no me, I do not exist."
The Daily Telegraph notes, however, that the roots of his selflessness may have arisen from tragic circumstances in early childhood. Sellers was born Richard Henry Sellers, with the name Peter bestowed on him as a tribute to his older brother who was stillborn. This sense of displaced identity haunted Sellers, but perhaps it gave him his ability to project himself so uncannily into the minds of other characters. Peter Sellers had a reputation as a womanizer, divorcing his first wife Anne, with whom he had had 2 children in the early 1960s. His second wife, the Swedish actress Britt Ekland, has in recent years gone on record to describe their difficult marriage and Sellers' jealous, controlling, and abusive behavior. Ekland suggested that her former husband most likely had bipolar disorder, explaining the great bouts of depression and paranoia that characterized his relationships with women in his life. Ekland was just 21 when she met Sellers, who was 17 years her senior. The actor had seen her photograph in a newspaper and decided that he wanted to meet her. The pair were soon married, with Sellers informing the press of his intentions before actually proposing to Ekland. Ekland described how Sellers would decide on almost all aspects of their lives together, including the outfits that his wife was to wear. In one incident, his abrupt decision that they should take a spontaneous holiday meant that Ekland was fired from her role in a Hollywood movie. Ekland has described how Sellers was both psychologically and physically abusive, going so far as to throw items and destroy property if he didn't get his way. After his divorce from Ekland, Sellers remarried twice more, to aristocrat Miranda McMillan and later to actress Lynn Frederick, to whom he was married at the time of his death. Peter Sellers' erratic behavior toward those close to him was exacerbated by alcohol and the drugs with which he used to experiment. Big drinking and fast-living Hollywood actors weren't exactly a rare species in the 60s and 70s, but the effects of such a lifestyle for Sellers and those around him were especially disastrous. Firstly, alcohol and drugs affected his health dramatically, with Sellers having his first heart attack before the age of 40. However, to make matters worse, Sellers wasn't given adequate treatment for a variety of reasons. As noted by The Guardian, Sellers' value to the production companies that made his movies meant that his heart issues were continually brushed off. On top of that, Sellers himself was highly superstitious and pursued a number of alternative methods when decisive medical intervention by pulmonary specialists might have had a tangible effect on his health. Coupled with the fact that Sellers did not change his lifestyle, which was amplified by the similar habits of his fourth wife, Lynn Frederick, it became a certainty that his health would continue to decline. The harrowing period, which his biographer Ed Sykov describes as, quote, Peter Sellers' deaths, began in a Los Angeles hotel room in April 1964, with Sellers in bed with 21-year-old wife Britt Ekland. Sykov's book features direct quotes from Ekland, who described the regularity with which the couple used drugs to increase their bedroom performance, particularly amyl nitrite, commonly known as poppers. The couple would take the drug nightly, according to Ekland, in pursuit of, quote, the ultimate orgasm. On this particular night, however, their adventurousness would go awry, with Ekland describing how she came back from the bathroom to find Sellers collapsed on the bed in a puddle of spilled champagne, with Sellers himself realizing that he was having a heart attack. Despite this, Sellers wasn't taken to Cedars of Lebanon Hospital until the next morning, where over the course of the coming days, he would suffer a barrage of further heart attacks in which his heart stopped entirely. The star was revived each time by a defibrillator. Sykov describes how, on hearing the news, television crews were already working on potential obituaries.
He said I was dead for 2 minutes, clinically dead. And I guess I was,
Meanwhile, between bouts of unconsciousness, Sellers performed songs and impersonations for children on the ward. Sellers would continue to have heart issues for the rest of his life. Sellers' first marriage to Anne Howe came to an end due to his infatuation with another woman, Italian page and screen idol Sophia Loren. Sellers and Loren had worked together on the 1960 movie The Millionaires, as well as the novelty song Goodness Gracious Me, which Sellers performed in character to promote the movie. Sellers didn't exactly keep his infatuation with his co-star secret. According to Psychov, colleagues on the set of The Millionaires reported that Sellers acted boyishly toward Loren as though she were a pinup in his bedroom. Meanwhile, in the evenings, over dinner with his family, the actor could not help but pore over the details of Loren's behavior and how she treated him each day. In one incident, Sellers returned home and declared his love for Loren openly to his wife. Loren was married to Italian movie producer Carlo Ponti and would continue to be until his death in 2007. Sellers claimed to friends that he and his co-star were in the throes of a passionate love affair and that she was going to leave her husband for him. However, there is no evidence to support these claims, and as Michael Sellers has discussed, the possibility exists that Sellers' infatuation was nothing more than a fantasy, born out of the inflation of his ego from being cast opposite such a glamorous sex symbol. It wasn't just his first wife, Anne, who had to deal with Sellers' ego-driven emotional problems. His declaration of love for Sophia Loren also occurred in front of his children. His son Michael, speaking to Psychov, described a moment when his father awoke him in the middle of the night to ask him the following question: "Do you think I should divorce your mummy?" Though the Sophia Loren saga is perhaps the most striking example of Sellers' strange lack of regard for the feelings of his family, the truth is that they acted as a continual outlet for his insecurities. In an interview with The Scotsman, Michael recalls how his father had asked him at the age of 7 which of his parents he liked best. When he replied "Mummy," it sent Sellers into a rage. The following year, Michael says, his father wrote him a letter claiming to disown him and advising the child to take his mother's maiden name, Howe. Michael, together with his sisters Sarah and Victoria, later wrote a best-selling book about the treatment they received from their troubled and troubling father. But aside from the intermittent contact, distance, and mood swings that the three had to contend with, the most brutal treatment was to come at the time of Peter's death. Irritability, flightiness, and violent mood swings were not reserved purely for Peter Sellers' home life. Indeed, his difficult personality put great strains on his friendships and those he worked with on set. A prime example is given in the recollections of director Peter Medic, who was friends with Sellers. According to The Guardian, the disastrous production of the 1973 movie The Ghost in the Noonday Sun was so fraught with difficulties that it provided enough material for a story of its own, which Medic finally told in the form of a documentary, The Ghost of Peter Sellers, released in 2018. While arranging to work on a script with Sellers, Medic was rudely left waiting alone at the actor's house and, having gone to find him, discovered Sellers on his head, naked, performing yoga. The incident is funny on its own, but further ambivalence toward the production on the part of Sellers, as well as tantrums and arguments on set, combined with bad luck regarding poor shooting conditions, meant the movie was never given a theatrical release. Ghost in the Noonday Sun was eventually released on home video in 1985. The official biography on the Peter Sellers website describes him as an obsessive perfectionist, an aspect of his character that accounts for his genius and also partly for his difficult personality.
Let's dig it. I thought you said your dog did not bite.
That is not my dog.
Peter Sellers also had a complicated relationship with his mother, Peg. Peter was spoiled by his mother, which may have been related to the tragedy of Peg losing her first baby. In Psychov's biography, Sellers' first wife, Anne, describes the dynamic between the pair as being formative for his later relationships with women. Peg remained close to Sellers well into his adulthood and was abnormally protective while allowing his behavior to go entirely unchecked. Some biographers believe this means that Sellers remained infantilized, expecting the women in his life to mother him. While filming the movie The Bobo in Italy in August 1966, Sellers received a phone call that his mother had suffered a heart attack. However, Sellers chose to remain on set, and his mother died within days. Her death affected Sellers deeply. In 1980, 16 years after his first heart attack, Sellers' heart finally gave out. The scene once again was a glamorous hotel. According to Roger Ebert, Sellers was staying at the Dorchester Hotel in London at the time of the attack. He was taken to London's Middlesex Hospital, where his condition worsened dramatically. Sellers passed away at 6:28 p.m. on July 24th. By his side was his second wife, Britt Eklund, and their daughter, Victoria, as well as his fourth wife, Lynn Frederick, to whom he had been married for only a few years. A number of tragic details have emerged surrounding Sellers' death, apart from the relatively early age at which he passed away. Firstly, Sellers had been taking steps to reconcile with his children, as is indicated by the presence of one of his daughters at his death. Similarly, on the day of his heart attack, Sellers was due to attend a reunion dinner with his old friends and co-stars on The Goon Show, Spike Milligan and Harry Seacombe. As reported by Wales Online, Sellers saved his last joke for after his death. He had requested for his funeral the song In the Mood by Glenn Miller, a song that all the Goons mutually detested, knowing they'd have to sit through it and hopefully share a last laugh. One of the most contentious events of Peter Sellers' life occurred in fact after his death, and so did one of the most tragic side stories. At the reading of Sellers' will, it was found that the vast majority of the actor's wealth, said to be around $7 million, was to go straight to his fourth wife, Lynn Frederick, to whom he was married at the time of his death. So far, so uncontroversial. However, the will also stipulated that each of Sellers' 3 children were to receive just $1,000 each. At the time, it seemed like a final rebuke from the erratic and emotionally troubled star, although evidence exists in the form of a recently unearthed letter that Sellers was attempting to change the beneficiaries of his will at the time of his death. Frederick declined to provide Sellers' 3 children with any more of his fortune than was allocated to them in his will, despite the pleas of Sellers' friend Spike Milligan, says Sykoff. His book also details how, struggling with addiction, Frederick died on April 27, 1994, aged just 39. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more grunge videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.